We would have large invitational meets, and I would put in my time and it would meet the qualifying time. However, my school size, they said, you're from Muckleshoot Tribal School, you're from a small school. We don't really want you here. I was really just excluded because of where I was from.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 179 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am excited you are here. If you are a new listener, welcome. I am just happy to meet you, and I hope we are connecting on other platforms. I do have my Instagram at TinaMuir88, or my Facebook is facebook.com/real Tina Muir. You can talk to me on any of those. I'd love to connect with you and get to know you more. If you are a loyal listener who's been around for many episodes, thank you again so much. We are approaching 200 soon. That is getting scary and getting exciting, and yeah, just kind of a big monumental moment, I guess. I need to think about who my guest is going to be for 200. I don't have anyone in mind just yet. So if you have any suggestions of a really powerful episode, let me know. Send me an email, tina@tinamuir.com. All right. So last week we had Amanda Brooks on the show. Amanda kind of very much says she is a middle of the pack runner. She has written a book for middle of the pack runners, and we talked a lot about how this group shouldn't be excluded just, for the being ones not chasing medals or being at the front. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a wonderful place to be. Amanda and I had a great conversation, and I hope you enjoyed that one. She's a wonderful person and really is kind of inspiring a lot of people with what she shares and how she is with everyone, really. Now, today I have an episode I'm honestly I just wish I could have had this years ago. Like I'm annoyed at myself and I couldn't have known who she was, but my guest today has just this incredible message to share. She's so brave, so inspiring. I think she might be my youngest guest ever. I don't think I've ever had someone in their teenage years on before. So she might be my youngest guest I've ever had, but she is so wise. She's already done a TED Talk. She's just inspiring and wonderful, and I really look forward to hearing what you think about this woman and what we can do to support her. So I am not going to spoil what the episode is about. I think I'm going to leave it to Rosalie to talk about that. But today I have Rosalie Fish on the show. She has a very powerful message, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think about it. So enjoy, my friends. And I just want to thank ButcherBox and Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode, and then we'll get right to it. Thank you to ButcherBox for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Now, when it comes to meat, quality matters, but there's more to that than just texture and taste. There's a lot of hidden costs that we may not think about when it comes to meat. If you get low quality meat, it's off flavor. There's also more of a cost to the environment. The animals aren't treated as well. It's better for you, better for the animal, better for the environment if you are actually choosing humanely raised meat. I know that not everyone has convenient access to high quality meat. It can be actually quite difficult to find 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef, free-range chicken, organic chicken, heritage breed pork, or wild-caught Alaskan salmon at the grocery store. And we don't all have time to, take our time shopping around farmers markets every week. But luckily, there is ButcherBox, which believes everyone deserves high-quality, humanely sourced meat. It is really easy to have ButcherBox delivered right to your door. You are never without something when someone shows up unexpected. You can just pull something out of the freezer for the next day. You also are not wasting as much food because we're not going to the grocery store as much, and therefore we aren't buying food and then something unexpected comes up in a different way and we go out to eat and then we waste that food. You have that in the freezer so you can pull it out just before you need it. Every month, ButcherBox is going to ship you a curated selection of high quality meat right to your home. Each box has 9 to 11 pounds of meat, which is enough for 24 meals. You can spread it out over a few months if you prefer. It's packed fresh, shipped frozen, vacuum sealed so that it stays that way. And I just love that it is shipped right to my door. That means one less trip to the grocery store. All comes in a nice box that's just kept nice and cold so that you don't have to worry about it. It's an affordable, convenient way to get healthy, humanely raised meat. Now, friends, ButcherBox is offering new members ground beef for life. That's £2 of ground beef in every box for the life of your subscription, plus $20 off your first box by going to butcherbox.com/running or enter code running at checkout. That's butcherbox.com/running or enter promo code running at checkout. Rosalie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. You have been very busy the last few days, and I have a feeling by the time this comes out, you probably would have had even more busy things that you were doing related to what we're going to talk about today. But thank you for squeezing in some time to talk to me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me and allowing me to share on your platform. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm all about trying to help people with their causes and things that they're passionate about. And, this is something that is incredibly important, but I've not seen anything before you. So I'm quite excited to be the one to kind of share your story and to show just how brave and strong you are. And, as people will probably be able to tell with you talking pretty quickly, you're 18, right? Or are you 19 by now?
So I'm 18. I'm going to be turning 19 pretty soon.
Okay. So, you're only 18, but you've already done so much. You've been so brave, as I've said, standing up for something that's important and would otherwise be ignored. But I want to start by breaking this down to basics, not to be ignorant, not to be rude or offensive, but I really want to help people understand from the basics, from the, like, I have no clue. I was never taught about any of this. So for someone listening who hears, as we're going to talk about today, talking about a tribe, a Native American tribe, what does that part mean?
So a Native American tribe is really just a subgroup within the entire Native American population. So each individual tribe, there's multiple within different states, and they each are bound together by their tribal affiliation. It's very similar to a small community with each having their own racial and ethnic similarities.
Mm-hmm. And is this kind of you live in a specific part of your state, like for you being in Washington, you will live kind of, we hear people talking about a reservation. You will live on a reservation, your homes are there, or is it a case of you're kind of just in amongst everyone else within the place that you live, but, you kind of have that affiliation?
So I would definitely say I do live on a reservation, and within that reservation is a community, and I am very blessed to be from a tribe and a reservation that has a lot of resources. So reservations are, they can vary as far as income level and poverty level. And so my reservation, personally, it is a community that really encompasses the entire tribe, all of the Native Americans in there, and we all have a very particular and shared traditional heritage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how is life different for you compared to, say, another teenager that lives just in Washington State, just in general, in, Seattle or Spokane or something like that?
So one difference is I come from a small community. My tribe has about 500 people in it, and we are all very connected, which I would say I don't see quite as much outside of these small communities, these tribal communities and reservations. So that is one thing that I would note right away is I have a very strong sense of home, and that sense of home encompasses my entire tribe and encompasses all 500 of the Muckleshoot people. Mm-hmm. That, along with really just there's a few educational barriers that I face pretty often just between misrepresentation or underrepresentation that really can make it discouraging to pursue any type of higher education or even just in high school education, having to learn maybe offensive types of notions about your ancestral heritage and about your community, it can make it very challenging sometimes to feel comfortable in an educational setting.
So, we're going to talk about how you have kind of been going against that, and you've been, making sure to be outspoken and speaking out about some of these things where you are treated poorly or wrongly. But does that mean that like the average person is just going to kind of stay within the community, work, live, kind of spend their whole life there? Like you said, not wanting to pursue anything more because of kind of that fear of what would happen beyond I don't want to say the maybe the border, the boundary, whatever the term you use is.
I would say that in my reservation, especially, I have seen that a lot. I've grown up really in an environment where non-Native people have been telling me that because I come from this community, I won't be really capable of doing anything greater, or I'm really set in this box or in these standards. And it can be very terrifying to try to exceed those standards or to break those boxes. And so I have seen it affect a lot of my family and friends, because it is very intimidating to know that there are people who may not know you personally, but who have preconceived notions about Native American people and people on reservations.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And I know that, must be a little frustrating to kind of have to break it down to so much basics when it should be something that we all know, just part of our education. But thank you for doing that. And, we will get on to talk about running. Don't worry, to everyone listening, this is going to tie into running. But, Native American women are more than twice as likely to experience violence than any other demographic. 1 in 3 Native women is sexually assaulted in her life, and 67% of these are perpetrated by non-natives. Now, those stats are kind of scary and would be intimidating, as you said, or terrifying to anyone listening. But for someone listening who's like, why would that be a factor? What makes the rates kind of be higher for a Native American woman than a non-Native American?
So based on research from the Urban Indian Health Institute and a few other Native American-based organizations that have been looking into this issue, we found that a mix between systematic prejudice along with social prejudice, these two elements have really combined to create a system of neglect for Native American women. And it is also a lack of communication between federal and state governments and police. And without any follow-up, without any push from these Native American communities and Native American leaders, we found that if we leave it to our local police to solve a case of a woman going missing or something happening to her, it simply won't be followed up. And so that's, I think it's really just these two, it's a social discrimination that has then enrooted itself in a systematic discrimination.
And you mentioned about the local police. Is that kind of police within your reservation, within your tribe, or are you talking about kind of beyond that, the general police that will look after all the county, all the area that you're in?
So for my personal experiences and based on a few others that I've looked into, it's mainly been the local city police, so not the tribal police. And
is there any reason they would have to kind of, I guess, defend themselves against that? Like, are they allowed to go onto the reservation? Are they, you said it's obviously some systematic things, and just the what's put in place by the government is not particularly helping things. But is there anything that they could rely on as to why they're maybe not, adequately identifying or reporting cases?
So we have seen just simply a lack of an attempt to make communication with the tribal police. Mm-hmm. Really what I've seen, especially in a recent case with Selena Not Afraid, is when tribal police do reach out to the city police asking for any kind of assistance, especially in a case that is so big that does require the resources of a bigger police force, we see the city police or the state police putting that responsibility onto like the FBI, and then we see the FBI putting that responsibility back, and we see almost this back and forth, this almost like you told somebody that you were going to take out the garbage, and then they accidentally told somebody else that they were going to. But it's like really
just keep handing it off.
Just keeps handing it off. Just a really easy to fix miscommunication, but it hasn't been fixed, and it is costing a lot of lives.
Mm-hmm. And for someone listening who, myself included, is listening to this and thinking, how is this happening in the 21st century? Like, aren't you protected by laws? Like, how is this? How is this able to get away with it, where these are, when someone's killed or reported missing, that it's kind of brushed under the carpet? Like, I know obviously that's the big question you're trying to figure out, but what have you kind of come up with that?
So I've actually spoken to a lot of relatives who have been affected by this epidemic, families of those who have been missing for decades even. And what they've told me is oftentimes when a Native American family or mother or caretaker goes to report a missing persons file, they've actually received openly racist responses, such as somebody had a comment that, oh, well, I'm sure they're probably just on a bender. And these stereotypes have taken a very violent form because they are now affecting the state of Native American women and making them increasingly vulnerable.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's going to only continue. And it is something that, that's a big part of why you're doing what you're doing, to kind of bring awareness. And we're going to talk about this just more and more as things go on. But before we get on to running coming into the picture, when you were at school, you were kind of teased for what you were wearing, when what you were wearing was reflective of your culture. And, shouldn't that be something that we are all doing? But many people listening, may have children who were teased for all kinds of reasons, just as we as adults sometimes have hurtful comments said to us. So for someone listening who's thinking, being teased at school, having some hurtful remarks, that's just life. You kind of have to just get on with it. What would you like to say to that person? How is this different?
I'd say to me, how this racist kind of bullying is different than other types of bullying is because it really is, just like all bullying, positions of power. And what really touches me personally when I see people being mocked, when I see them being resented for representing their cultural heritage, especially as a Native American, is I see that historically, I see that the generations above me, I have a great-grandparent who is still alive today and has not recovered from his experience in the boarding schools. I see these, I guess, habits or these practices of power and of suppressing somebody being passed down continuously from generation to generation. And while it changes and it takes a different shape each time, it's still present. It still has the same intentions to suppress a certain race or ethnicity of people and to keep them not doing well or to keep them really just not meeting their full potential.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for explaining that, and for even thinking about the after effects, the greater effects that it can have on a community and your friends, your family, and as you mentioned, your grandfather. And over the years, with this kind of wise mind that you have, for someone listening who maybe their child is being teased for one reason or another, or they are kind of maybe dealing with racism of some kind, what advice have you kind of come across just for being in that moment when those comments come across, that to help you let go or to help you not take those to heart and let them define who you are?
I'd say that my real coping methods, even now when I face discrimination or when I face intolerance, in the moment, I will admit that sometimes it does feel like there's nothing you can do. And where my real healing comes in and where I really deflect is later when I come home or I go into my room and I pull out like the indigenous flute that my grandpa gave me. And I think about the things that keep myself and my family and the generations above me, things that keep us resilient.
Love that.
And so the things that we are often being teased about or are being bullied for are things that make us powerful. We just have to find that power and that resilience in there. And it's hard to do in the moment. Sometimes I can't always do that in the moment, but when I come back to my home and I can smell the indigenous plants that my grandpa sent with me so that I will always remember what home smells like. Mm-hmm. That's when I get that out of my system. And that's when I can really deflect what was said to me, because in that moment, I really ground myself. And I think that can happen with a lot of aspects to anybody who's being bullied for any reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that. And I mean, I feel like you could even take a concept of that with you if you wanted that kind of reminder sooner, you could put something in your pocket that your ancestor had given you, or for someone listening, like I know for me, the power of like smelling something that my mum has washed, living in America when I miss my family. There's something about that just makes me feel so comforted. So, I guess bringing something or giving your child something that they can keep with them or keep in their bag that reminds them of, like what makes them powerful, like you said, what makes them special. So thank you. That's really, really good advice there. And I know, as you said, it doesn't help in that very instant from your automatic reaction to the situation, but it definitely kind of eases the pain quicker afterwards. Mm-hmm. So, as this teasing kind of continued, and this is quite a common thing for Native Americans within kind of regular day-to-day school systems, you got hooked on this part isn't, you got hooked on antidepressants, but suicide is quite a common thing within Native Americans. Can you share with us, like, if you're comfortable with it, how did this get to the point that you tried to take your own life? And we have had an episode on suicide. I want to point anyone who is struggling, a lot right now, or has someone they know who is struggling. I do have an episode on suicide. There will be a link in the show notes if you want to listen to that. But tell us about, how could it seem, as someone just kind of in the early stages of their life, that things would be that dire that you reached that point?
Yeah, I can definitely share about that. So I really did experience this bullying and this harassment for my culture, even in kindergarten, really. And I had stayed in that environment up until my freshman year of high school. And during my freshman year of high school, I attended an institution that didn't seem to really pay attention to the types of sexual harassment or really the dynamics that were happening within that school. So I was sexually harassed by upperclassmen when I was about 15 years old, and I really didn't receive any help for that. I was always kind of told that there was no physical evidence that I was being harassed, and therefore they weren't able to do anything. And I really did, for quite a moment, feel very alone and just very powerless. With this intersectional type of attacks that I was facing, I felt like I was being neglected. I felt like I was being isolated because of my culture, and nobody respected me because I was Native American. And that was paired with the fact that I was being targeted because I was a woman and treated as a sexual desire to a lot of the upperclassmen at my school. So I tried to get on antidepressants, and I tried to just keep going to just get out of this hole. But unfortunately, I was very young at the time and very misinformed about antidepressants.
Thank you to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. By now, you know I am a big fan of Athletic Greens. The Ultimate Daily is the all-in-one supplement with 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients that work together to help the body absorb and synthesize these nutrients in a highly bioavailable form. It was originally developed for athletes and high performers. Just one scoop of Ultimate Daily delivers adaptogens, antioxidants, prebiotics, probiotics, and a superfood complex that helps support the body's nutritional needs. And I have found it just to be a wonderful addition to my life. I wake up first thing in the morning, I stumble into the kitchen, I pour water into my shaker, mix the scoop of Athletic Greens in there and drink it down while I write in my journal. Life-changing, gets me off on the right foot. I know I've got my safety net of nutrition going in every day, even if my diet hasn't been the best, particularly during pregnancy. But it has been just a great thing. It's taken by elite, it's taken by professionals, health conscious go-getters. It makes it so easy for you to get this comprehensive nutrition without the need for multiple pills, powders, or complex routines. It really is the most complete supplement for a better you. It has the antioxidant equivalent of 12 servings of fruits and vegetable in every scoop. And I know that I'm getting these hard to find ingredients and a high level of antioxidants that can boost my immunity. Bailey and Steve both recently got the flu, and I honestly think a big part of how I somehow managed to not get it was because of Athletic Greens. I genuinely believe that. Now, my friends, you can get a 20 serving travel pack for free. That's worth $79 by going to athleticgreens.com/Tina. That's athleticgreens.com/Tina. And you will be able to get that 20 serving, $79 value pack for free. And with these big races we have coming up, you do not want to be leaving this to chance. It feels horrible if you wake up the week of the race with sickness. Get this in your system so that it's ready, it's helping protect you. So when race day comes, you are ready to go. I believe in it so much, and I hope you do too.
I felt like I was being isolated because of my culture, and nobody respected me because I was Native American. And that was paired with the fact that I was being targeted because I was a woman and treated as a sexual desire to a lot of the upperclassmen at my school. So I tried to get on antidepressants, and I tried to just keep going to just get out of this hole. But unfortunately, I was very young at the time and very misinformed about antidepressants. And I really don't believe I should have been on medication at all. I think we're in a behavioral health kind of era and a mental health era where when we show up to the office, they ask, "What's wrong with you?" When really I think they should be asking, "What happened to you?" Mm-hmm. And so when they showed up and they said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I can't be happy. I'm not capable of feeling happy." So I had antidepressants, but as some people may know, being on antidepressants can often make you feel very groggy. And with my AP classes and the high level classes I was taking, being groggy wasn't an option. And so I ended up taking my antidepressants erratically, and it made me even more suicidal, I guess. And that was in the point in 2016 when I had reached my very lowest and I attempted to take my own life.
Mm-hmm. And, thank you for sharing that. That's very brave of you to share. And you've highlighted a lot of issues that, I certainly talk about on here, but that we do need to get better at actually talking through what is happening to us rather than, just jumping straight to medication. Although I do understand that, medication in some cases is very much needed. So I'm not discounting that at all. But, talking about these things is kind of where we need to start. And, after that moment, thankfully, you didn't succeed with that. But, did something change in you then that you wanted to find another outlet? Or, did that kind of continue for a while where you struggled to get out of that funk?
I definitely did not recover right away. I struggled with suicidal ideation throughout the years, really. And the only thing that really kept me grounded as much as I could have been, and that really kept me going, I guess, was running. So I was moved to Muckleshoot Tribal School after my attempt because my mother works there, and obviously my family was very concerned about me and the environment that I had at my other school. And so at tribal school, I continued to run, and I found a much greater purpose in it because now I found that when I ran, I was unable to feel sadness, right? The brain chemicals that we get when we work out, when we exercise, almost make it impossible to feel sad. And so as terrible as I'd be feeling before I went on my run, as I came back, I knew that I felt significantly better. And it was that school of running that I really held on to.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you did find that. And you mentioned, it was kind of running at Muckleshoot when you did change schools. How was running involved before? Like, were you on the team? Was that just kind of I suppose I should do a sport thing? Or how did you end up running, in the first place?
So I did start running in middle school. I didn't run my freshman year of high school, though, just because I was facing some insecurities, and I was just very nervous about the entire thing. So I decided that I remembered how empowering it felt, how great it felt to run in middle school, and I decided I should give it a shot again when I moved to tribal school.
Okay. And then you joined the team, you started to see the benefits in it, and you kind of started to run for something greater than yourself. You're running to represent your community. Tell us about how that decision kind of came about, and how your relationship with running developed from those early days where you were just using it to kind of essentially block out the pain.
Yeah. So running for me really became a way to demand acknowledgement, because while I was at a new tribal school and I was within my community and very well accepted for my ethnic background, when I still ran with other people who were at times intolerant. So when I showed up to different meets, especially now that I had Muckleshoot Tribal School on my uniform, I really did notice a difference in the way that I was treated and in the way that I was perceived. Just like, as I mentioned earlier, with my friends on my reservations and sometimes how they feel set up in these boxes, that was exactly what happened to me at these track meets. I showed up for my first race, and they were just, I guess the notions and the perceptions of me were that this Muckleshoot Tribal School doesn't produce winners. They don't produce, successful, competitive athletes.
Were you the only one on the team?
Yes, for quite a bit.
Okay. So sorry, continue. I just wanted to clear that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I started to get better, and my time started to increase. I even noticed, when we'd have a city meet, I wouldn't be invited, even though my time qualified and I was within the boundaries. I was being very noticeably excluded. We would have large invitational meets, and I would put in my time, and it would meet the qualifying time. However, my school size, they said, well, you're from Muckleshoot Tribal School. You're from a small school. We don't really want you here. I was really just excluded because of where I was from, and not because my abilities were, I would say, just overlooked.
Yeah. And so what changed in you? Something made you decide to kind of, take a stand and do something to kind of take that power back, to take your own running prowess back, I guess. What happened?
So I remember I showed up to a meet that I actually wasn't invited to. I had a very spunky coach, and he had this, he was very progressive in the sense that he was almost even more serious about this issue than I was. And when I told him, well, they didn't invite me. They didn't even believe that I had a uniform. They don't want me to go to this meet. And he said, well, you do have a uniform and you can win it. And he said, so we're just going to show up.
Thank you to Tifosi for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Now, what does Tifosi mean, you wonder? Well, I just looked it up, and actually Tifosi is the Italian word for superfan, which is exactly who they are and who they make their eyewear for. Their mission is to provide technically advanced eyewear to enthusiasts of all sports and outdoor activities. That includes us. They design, test, and torture their products to enhance our sport, and Tifosi's Swank Series sunglasses beat out the competition with these premium features that no other brands have at $25. Now, I know many of you within the community have been asking me about sunglasses lately, and I'm excited to have something to tell you. Finally, I had seen other friends wearing Tifosi's around, and I'd been like, what is that you're wearing? I'd never heard of the brand, and I was pretty excited to see it. The lenses are polycarbonate, which means they don't buckle under pressure. They have an integrated hinge, which means the arms snap open and close without pulling your hair as you run. So frustrating when that happens. Swank Series glasses come in Wayfarer and Aviator styles, and they have dozens of colors. So many colors that when you mix and match them in their custom shop, you have a pair that is totally unique to you from thousands of possible combinations. Tifosi also makes wraparound frames with adjustable fits and interchangeable or variable tint lenses, which makes it great for running in different light conditions. As we know, that happens quite a lot with summer. We are going to be kind of going into these summer months where that is very important. You probably already have running sunglasses, but you can never have too many shades. Make your next pair Tifosi and you will never go back to anything else. Now, my friends, I have a 10% off code for you. If you use code TINA at tifosioptics.com, I'll spell that out for you. That's TIFOSIOPTICS. I'll spell that again. TIFOSIOPTICS, tifosioptics.com, and you use code TINA, you can get 10% off your order. Now, just for, I know that you guys are going to ask me anyway, the brands that I like, I love the Swank series. There's a Swank SL and just a Swank regular. Those are both great. And I like the Svagos. I am more into kind of casual looking sunglasses. So those are definitely the ones for me. If you do want performance ones, they definitely have some of those too. But I absolutely love these Tifosi optics. And I'm so excited that I finally have an offer for you too. Go to tifosioptics.com and use code TINA for 10% off.
I remember I showed up to a meet that I actually wasn't invited to. I had a very spunky coach, and he had this, he was very progressive in the sense that he was almost even more serious about this issue than I was. And when I told him, well, they didn't invite me. They didn't even believe that I had a uniform. They don't want me to go to this meet. And he said, well, you do have a uniform and you can win it. And he said, so we're just going to show up. And he's like, and I'm just going to register you there. And I remember thinking my coach is going to get me in so much trouble. There's no way that this is going to work. So I hesitantly show up with my coach. He's a little, I wouldn't call him mad. I think I would call him determined. He's determined.
Yes, that's what I was going to, yeah.
And so with a few allies, actually, with some help from a few other people in the different schools who were in that race, they backed us up after they realized what kind of injustices and the prejudice we were facing and why I wasn't able to race in that meet. So I actually was able to race in the meet and I won it. And I remember just feeling so empowered because before that race, I really had let others convince me that I wasn't worthy of racing in it. You know, he told me I was a senior in high school. And he had told me, well, I don't even think you have a uniform. And even if you did, you would have to race junior varsity race, even though I was a senior. And so when I raced in varsity with a uniform on and I won it, I really just felt like there was nothing that he could do or say to me in that moment that would make me feel powerless.
Did he apologize?
No.
Well, that's not really too surprising, I suppose. So then what happened from there after that day?
I just noticed that I personally really had a level of confidence that really kept me going, that didn't stop me from trying to attend these meets. And maybe when I was rejected the first time, to follow up, say, well, why are you rejecting me? And along with that,
did you ever get any responses with that?
I have noticed this year, now that I've graduated, my coach tells me that we are being invited to a number of meets this year that I was rejected from last year.
Okay. So yeah, you kind of realized that people couldn't hold you back. People couldn't stop you from, finding your power again within the sport. And is this where Jordan Daniels came along, or was there some time in between that?
This was very close to when Jordan, definitely came along in my story. When she ran in the Boston Marathon, she wore the red handprint over her mouth for the missing and murdered Indigenous women epidemic.
I just want to pause you and explain that. So when you say a red handprint over her mouth, tell us exactly what you mean by that for someone who wouldn't have seen a photo.
So it's literally a painted handprint over her mouth, and it's in red. So it's just a way to, it almost represents somebody covering your mouth and to stop you from speaking.
Yep.
And for Jordan, that specifically was a reference to like the historical violence that Native American face and how that silences us from speaking or from contributing to public and social discussions. And so along with that, she had MMIW in red painted down her leg to provide some context for that paint, and an acronym for the missing and murdered Indigenous women epidemic so that people could research on their own. And when I saw that Jordan Marie Daniel did this with her running platform, I really just felt even more powerful. I felt like there was something unlocked. I had no idea that athletes could use their platform artistically in this way to represent the issues that they care about. And for me, to see another Native American woman claiming her sport, claiming that platform, and really putting herself out there and doing something, I was completely moved. She really set the standards of what I felt like I need to be doing for my community. I can do more. And so she pushed me to make that change.
Yep. And you did end up reaching out to her and kind of, talking to her and doing the same thing. And when you found her, was it because a publication was featuring or like highlighting what she was doing? Or how did you come across her photo? There's however many thousands, 30,000, 40,000, I don't even know the number, I should, of people that run the Boston Marathon. It might be less than that. But how did you find her photo in the first place?
So Indian Country Today is an organization that publishes articles about Native issues all the time. And they did publish something about Jordan. Okay. And so that's how I discovered her. And then I reached out to her I just Googled her name in my social media, and then I found her, and honestly, I became a fan, and then thinking, because I just thought, when I looked up to her at that moment, I thought, this is the woman that I thought I didn't even think that this was possible. A Native American woman, she's a pro athlete, and she's an advocate. I just remember being so mind blown when I had seen her, just because I hadn't seen that kind of role model. I hadn't seen a woman really just encompassing all the things that make me feel powerful all at once.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous, and when she responded to me, I was even more nervous, and I was really, my family saw me. It was like just really starstruck. But now if anything, she's more like a mentor or a relative to me.
Yeah, when I was just going to say, and I'm sure in many ways she looks up to you and admires you for what you are doing and what you have done, as you have kind of taken it onto the next level. And so you started to do this yourself, put the red handprint over your mouth, writing MMIW on your leg. And, for the rest of the year at high school. And a few things, how did that feel? You're obviously drawing more attention to yourself now. Like before, you said that you felt people kind of either excluded you or kind of looked at you differently, but now you've kind of by doing this, you've got to a point where you're kind of saying, look at me, like, go on then. And so, how did that make you feel kind of doing that after all these years of kind of like being suppressed and being kind of pushed down?
So I would definitely say that I was at first extremely nervous. I knew that I would be making a statement that would upset people. And I remember as I was putting on the paint at my state championships and outlining the handprint, like my hand was shaking with the paint on it, because I just thought, I have no idea how people are going to react to this. I might get positive reactions. I might have people try to disqualify me from my races. It could be anywhere in between. And I knew it was something that was bigger than myself. I was racing for people who weren't me. I was racing on the behalf of those who have been disserviced and by those who have been lost. And it was very terrifying to think about.
Mm-hmm. And you did start to dedicate your races, each one, to someone who had been lost or, like you said, mistreated, which is just, so special for the people who love and care about that person, some of which you knew, to know that, they were being represented and someone was taking a stand, like you said, making a statement. So, tell us about some of the conversations that came out of this. I mean, obviously, just knowing this culture we live in, there was probably some kind of laughing or, rudeness that came around. But like, there must have been some other sides of things where people, did ask you about things and did start to do features on you and exactly highlight what you wanted to highlight, which is kind of the mistreatment. So tell us about some of the good stories.
Yeah, I would definitely say that I was really blessed to have, especially like the Seattle Times. They really helped me get the word out there, and they've even started doing episodes about missing and murdered Indigenous women and featuring these advocates. And so I've been able to work with different news networks, different educational networks, and other Native organizations to really just get the word out there and to luckily share my story and point out that I was a Native American woman a Native American girl actually at the time, and it almost seems like I was destined to not live past 15. But through things like support systems, finding like my athletic career, and even just honestly, some of it is plain luck. I'm here able to put my voice out into the world and to advocate for those who are vulnerable. And so I think this is a really revolutionary time for these minority groups and for groups that are suppressed. And I think groups of people who are expected to fail, are expected to end in tragedy. I think this is the time where things are finally going to change.
Yeah. And what can someone listening who, is a non-Native American and is listening to this, really touched by your story, really wants to do something, what can they do to kind of help with this?
Yeah, there's a few things that each of us can do on the political level and even just in the social level within our own lives. So the first one I would say is if you do have the spare funds, donating to either the Urban Indian Health Institute or the Sovereign Bodies Institute are both organizations that are Native founded and work towards this epidemic constantly, are working towards getting the numbers, are working towards finding the issues and finding, even more importantly, solutions. So that's one. I mean, I am a college student, so I totally understand if that first one is an option for you. So the second one I would say is if you're able to vote, finding a candidate and supporting the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2019. That's a piece of legislation that actually includes Native American women and addresses this epidemic and would create some safety nets where we're finding these holes, these spots. And so I think that's a really great act to look into, and not just for the safety of Native American women, but really for all women. And then the last one I would say is the Urban Indian Health Institute found that violent stereotypes, violent words lead to violent notions, which lead to violent actions. And so even if you're just a bystander and you hear a peer, a coworker, maybe even an uninformed friend speak some type of bias or stereotype towards Native people, just gently and addressing that in an educational manner and really being a voice for Native people and being an ally, I think that would really make a difference.
And surely sharing, when places like the Seattle Times, or sharing your story with people, sharing this episode so people can learn and understand. And that's why I broke it down at the beginning, so that we can very much kind of know how to speak, how to talk about things. And when I've done this in the past with a lot of the sensitive topics we've covered, it's really helped people to kind of know how to approach this and how to help. So thank you. And I will put links in the show notes for everyone if you do want to go donate and you have the ability to do that. Now, before we move on, you mentioned about how much you looked up to Jordan and how what she did was so pivotal to you. But have you stopped to think about, what you've been able to do, and how there's young girls, there's probably people older than you who are maybe in a situation where they kind of feel out of control and they feel lost, and you have become that kind of that bright light, the shining source for them to kind of look to in moments of hardship. Have you kind of allowed yourself to soak that in and seen what a role model you've become?
It's been a little bit. I have a little bit, definitely.
Good.
I always get a little bit nervous, or and it's a very strange feeling to me to know that people might look up to me the way I look up to Jordan. It's very new, but I do know that we all inspire each other, and that sometimes we don't even realize it, but we are a part of each other's journey. And just working towards the things that we care about and working towards change, we are even impacting others who we might not know.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm positive, just as I think I do. If I am, or I do inspire anybody, I'm sure that they will inspire me right back.
Yeah, well, you do. You definitely inspire me, and I'm sure many of the people listening. So, all right. So you're now in college at Iowa Central. Tell us how things are different. Did you select this college specifically because of you felt safe, you felt comfortable there? Have you had to kind of do the same thing all over again to try and, get people to understand? Where are you at now?
So I actually had never visited the college before I signed. I chose this college because they had a really impressive history with their women's cross country and track. They're in the junior college division, and at the time of my signing, that really seemed like the better option for me, just because I felt like I really needed these support systems. Like I needed a year or two to really adjust, and I thought a junior college would help me do that. And so now I have been very successful here as far as academics and athletics. The social and political environment is much different than Washington. And so that's been a little bit difficult because it's been hard for me to really reconnect with my culture all the time, just because there's a smaller population of Native Americans here in Iowa than there is in Washington. But I have a lot of online or just virtual support systems that I can access, and I have I actually have a lot, especially because I just came back from Seattle. So I have all kinds of my rubs and my elderberry syrups and my jerky and all these things that I use on a daily basis that remind me of who I am and where I'm from. And so it has been a little bit challenging because there are people here at my college who don't quite understand the full impact of this epidemic, or they don't understand athletics as a social platform. Mm-hmm. But I think that even when I try to maybe share my point of view or maybe educate them on a topic and they don't respond, I really just, it doesn't really stop me from wanting to do the things that I need to do.
That's good. Thank you. And, you recently did a TED talk, or is it TEDx talk? And, that among the many other things you're doing will just continue to build that kind of reputation. And, people will continue to learn and educate and understand themselves, even if, they're just watching it quietly when they think you're not looking. But like, all of this stuff you're doing is continuing to build. But tell us about that TEDx opportunity. How did that come about, and how scary was that, doing that as an 18-year-old? I can't even imagine doing it now, let alone 13 years ago for me. But tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I actually, TEDx reached out to me and invited me to apply to speak in the summer. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I have so many things going on. I'm going to be in Iowa. I have no idea how this is going to work. So I just kind of told them, I'm just not sure if I'm in the right place and time to be able to do this. And then, so I didn't really, I wasn't very engaging at first. And then the next thing you know, I respond another email from them and they said, congratulations, we've applied for you and you've been accepted to do the TED Talk. And I was like, oh,
that's kind of the dream, to be honest. Like TED are that desperate for you. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think it was just that Seattle area, especially of that crew of Seattle TEDx youth. Really, they really wanted to do their part in sharing about MMIW, and I'm really glad that they did persist, because my first thoughts were, I am not qualified to do a TED Talk. And I just thought that these people maybe have made some kind of mistake, or maybe they're confused. But they came down and they pretty much told me, well, we can help you do this. So I think they really supported me. They got behind me and told me that I could do it. And the next thing I know, I had already written up a presentation for a different national conference a few weeks earlier. So I sent them that same presentation, and they said, well, this is close to what we need. And I worked on it for a few months after that and edited it and worked with my coaches. And then the memorization along with that was a little challenging, but now I can't get it out of my head. I'll lay down, go to bed, and then all of a sudden my TED Talk starts up in my brain and it won't stop. But
you have to play it all the way through.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. And I will definitely put a link in the show notes for everyone to go watch. You should watch it. I'm just so in awe of you for everything that we've talked about, but particularly for that, just like, I mean, you were so confident, you were cool and calm and collected, and it was really like inspiring to watch. So I definitely think everyone listening, go to the show notes at tinamio.com/episode 181. So you can go listen to that, I should say. All right. So just to wrap up here, we've talked a lot about doing something greater than yourself, taking a stand, making a statement. For someone who has I have no idea what I believe in. That's, what's different about me. I don't have some kind of cause that is kind of not exclusively mine, but isn't really spoken about. Like, what could you tell someone to give them the courage to talk about something if, maybe it's going to make waves, or maybe it's going to make people kind of make remarks, but to do something bigger than who they are? What would you say?
I would say that when I originally put on the handprint, that paint, and when I made a tribute to the women that I was racing for, I did not think I was going to impact anybody other than the people at my meet. And a month later, I found myself in global and national headlines. And I think this type of unexpected empowerment can happen to anybody who puts themselves out there, because that's really what touches people, is when they see you put yourself out there, because it is a scary thing. But it also, we're really just all doing our part in making that change and sparking that fire to a movement. Mm-hmm. Just as I know somebody influenced Jordan. I know Jordan was influenced by people who were making change, and she influenced me. And I hope I someday get to influence another, big advocate, another powerful human to do the right thing.
Well, and I'm honored that I get to be someone who joins you in part of this. And as I've said many times, you really have inspired me so much with what you've done. And I'm honored to be able to share your story. And thank you for those words of advice there. Like we all have something that we really care about. And yes, it can be scary. And I've told my listeners, for me, it is kind of the environmental crisis that we have going on right now. And I did a episode on it, and I was scared to release that. I told that in the episode, but I was scared to release it because I knew people wouldn't necessarily like it. And but it felt good. It felt empowering to do something about what you believe in. So thank you so much, Rosalie. Where can people find you if they want to follow you on social media, support you on social media? Tell us more.
So I'm pretty bad with technology and Facebook, but so far the best social media platform that I've mastered, to the best of my ability anyways, is Instagram.
I'd say you definitely mastered Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. So usually I can be, sometimes they change the messages, and then I'm like, I only see my primary messages, and apparently I have 16 general messages. But other than that, I'm pretty good at responding or just engaging, keeping it updated, those kinds of things.
That's great. All right. Well, Rosalie, thank you so much for all that you do, and just keep on doing what you're doing. I cannot wait to see, what the future has to hold for you, and what else is coming your way. I'm really, really excited for you, and thank you for being so brave on behalf of people who otherwise wouldn't have a voice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, and for allowing me to be part of your audience and your platform. Thank you.
My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. What a woman, right? I mean, she is going to just do so much in this life if she's already accomplished so much and just spread the word and just been so inspiring and so wise by 18 years old. I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Rosalie, and I hope you will do what you can to support her and her community. I had no idea about any of that stuff that we found out there about Native American women and just how they are treated. And, we really need to change this. We need to do what we can to work on this not being an issue and how to support them. So I will put links in the show notes to the sources that Rosalie mentioned, and also her TED Talk, so you can go listen to that. But I hope you enjoyed that episode with her, because I think it was just a really powerful one. So actually on the point of show notes, you can go to tinamuir.com/episode 179 to go get those links. And I just want to take another quick second to thank Athletic Greens and ButcherBox for sponsoring this episode. Remember, ButcherBox, you can get ground beef for life with your order when you put in a subscription. Every month that you continue your subscription, you will get free ground beef by using code RUNNING at checkout, or going to butcherbox.com/running. And Athletic Greens, you can get 20 servings of Athletic Greens. That's a $79 value free with your first order. So make sure you go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. I want to thank them both for sponsoring me and supporting this episode. And on that note, if you go purchase these products, you are telling these brands that you appreciate me and that I'm valuable and what I'm sharing is valuable. So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate that. Now, next week, we have the one and only Meb Keflezighi on the show. This is going to be a kind of pre-Boston episode. We are lucky to be having Meb on. You can imagine how busy he is at this time of the year. He has so much going on. You'd think not being a professional anymore, his life would have calmed down. Nope, quite the opposite. So I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation with Meb next week. It's actually the first time I've officially had Meb on my show just as is. I did have him on that live show, and I put a link in the show notes if you want to go listen to that one with him. At the New York Roadrunners Run Center. But this is the first time he's actually been fully a guest on his own on the show. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. My friends, I hope you have a great week and I'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.